5.6, these are two words or phrases that are mentioned again a lot today, but they have their origins in the 1800s: socialism and communism. We hear it in the news when people say President Obama wants to create socialized medicine, or that's a communist country. So these terms should be familiar, but you might not have known what they meant before this. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, the type of poverty has changed. In an agricultural economy, if someone was poor, they might not have much to eat, but they probably had some sort of connection to the land. Their crops might fail, but they could try again. They could plant something else. They could become a shepherd. They had more options, seemingly. There still definitely was poverty. There still was hunger. But the type of poverty has changed so much with the Industrial Revolution. We have cities that become crowded, and there is the issue of pollution, and we talked about water and air pollution and poorly built houses. This really is modern poverty, where you can see, the slums sometimes exist just blocks from the nice apartment buildings. It's almost that seeing the possibility of wealth makes the lack of wealth that much more devastating. So the type of poverty we see today in 2013 really starts to exist as we know it as a result of the Industrial Revolution. So in the 1800s, there's a number of people who say, well, this is not okay. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and that is not acceptable. All the money that's out there is not distributed in any sort of equal fashion. And there's going to be some specific terms. The bourgeoisie, this was first a term we used in the Third Estate in the French Revolution. Now the term bourgeoisie comes to mean the wealthy, the rich. And we don't just have peasants anymore, we have workers. And the working class is now called the proletariat, the masses of people who are making this industrial revolution happen. One idea that becomes popular is egalitarianism, that everyone should have the same access to rights. Social rights, we talked about social mobility, political rights, we've talked about that before, and suffrage and voting, and now economic rights. How can we have equality of rights to at least give people the option to have more wealth? This develops into socialism, trying to fix the inequality between very, very rich and very, very poor. It's not saying make everything perfectly equal, but to make it less unequal. And usually through politics or through laws like that. Usually through laws or something like that. So we're going to look at 4 different types of socialism. The first one comes from Robert Owen. Robert Owen was a factory owner, a businessman in Scotland, and he found the perfect location for a new factory, so he decides to build a factory and an entire factory town around it. In addition to building the factory itself, he builds housing for his workers, and rather than building tenements, quickly built, cheap housing, Robert Owen invests money to build solid homes that will keep his workers warm in the winter. Just on this alone, he is investing money ahead of time, knowing that his workers will be healthier and will be able to work longer for him. In addition to that, he builds a school for the children of the workers, and the children aren't even allowed to work in his factories until they are at least 11 years old. This is costing him money. He is building a school. He is paying a teacher. Probably paying for all the supplies. But he knows that the children who end up becoming adults and working in this factory will be educated, and he can rely on them to fill important roles, important positions in his company. But it took more investment on his part. He even builds gardens and hosts concerts and lectures for his workers on their evenings free or their afternoons off on the weekends. All of this does nothing. He's not buying materials cheaper. He is not making more products, but he does all of this. He spends all of this money because he knows that his workers will be happier and healthier and live longer, and then they will be more productive. So eventually he will benefit. He will profit from this financially, but it takes a bit of investment up front. So in this case, the workers aren't really getting paid anymore, but their quality of life is improving. We're going to call this utopian socialism. Utopia is an ideal society. And in this case, he still benefits. Robert Owen is still benefiting as the businessman. But the workers are also benefiting. They are getting an improved quality of life. Our second socialism is from Claude-Henri de Saint-Simon. He is a Frenchman. Yes, he has a large nose. I believe a number of people pointed that out in class. Saint-Simon writes this book, The New Christianity, in 1825. So this really is sort of at the very beginnings of the Industrial Revolution and this large-scale manufacturing and huge urban growth. But it's enough for him to see that there is a problem. Saint-Simon says that the issue can be solved through Christian charity, that those out there who consider themselves believers, that they will actually work to help the poor, to increase their welfare as an act of Christian faith. When Jesus says in Matthew, when you love the least of these, you have loved me, Saint-Simon is saying that Christians, it is their duty to help those who are less fortunate, whether that means donating money or working in a soup kitchen or whatever it means possible. He's not saying give up everything you have so that we can all be equal, but trying to decrease the difference between very rich and very poor, and that it will be done out of Christian charity, Christian love. So we have utopian socialism, we have Christian socialism. Then we have Charles Fourier. He's a little bit of an oddball. He wants to organize citizens according to what they love to do. So someone who loves being outdoors and loves sports and action, they might be someone who organizes landscaping or building because they like the process and they like being outdoors. People who enjoy music because they understand the way an orchestration works together and we have all these different elements. They might be musicians to benefit us all, or they might be architects to understand how the different elements of a building all work together in symphony. Fourier says that if everyone does what they love, there will be like phalanges, like fingers on a hand. So on one finger you have the people who love being outdoors. On another finger you have the people who love the arts. On another hand you have people who love food. Everyone will have their specific function, and then just like fingers on a hand, communities can work together. This isn't about anyone earning more money, but it's about satisfaction. So if people are doing what they love, then people won't be concerned with how much money they make. So in that way, everyone will work together and they'll be happier with their life. Well, I'll just get along, man. Kumbaya. In Fourier's image, this will work because if people are doing what they love, you don't need a government to force people to do something else. You won't need a police force to fight against crime, and countries won't fight each other at war because everyone will just work. Now, this might function on a very small scale, on a commune or something like that, but it's hard to see how it could work on any large or national level. So we have utopian socialism, we have Christian socialism, and we'll call this kumbaya, tie-dye, hippie socialism. Our last socialism comes from Karl Marx. It becomes so well known that he actually will put his name on this type of socialism. It will be Marxism. Marx is German. His family owned a number of textile factories in Germany. And as a young man, they send him to Great Britain so that he can study Britain's industry and bring back some of those new ideas to Germany. When Karl Marx is in Britain, yes, he starts, studying textile factories, but he really starts seeing the social inequality, the result of industrialization, the poverty and all of the horror that resulted from the Industrial Revolution. So he sort of abandons his family company and becomes a philosopher and tries to work for the working man to help support the proletariat. Marx starts looking at history and saying, we have class inequality right now, and all of history is the story of class inequality and those classes trying to equalize or normalize. What he says is different, though, is that now there's going to be conflict, physical struggle, almost a physical war between poor and rich. Most wars have been between countries. But now he says, not only is there conflict between the classes, but that it will be by force. That the people, the proletariat, must rise up by force and overtake the wealthy. And you could sit on Karl Marx's lap too if you want to go to Berlin and do that. So the very poor, the proletariat, will rise up against the rich and take over. And this is not going to happen through political documents, through negotiations, but it will be by force because the situation is now so extreme as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Marx meets another German in his time in England, Friedrich Engels, another wealthy German. They both live privileged lives, but together they write the Communist Manifesto, espousing all of these beliefs that the workers, the proletariat, must rise up, and they must do so with violence if necessary, and that the working men of the world must unite, and that they will create a dictatorship of the proletariat, that the people who have no rights and no money, when they take over and overthrow the rich, then they will be the leaders. The proletariat will become the government. But because the proletariat has been disenfranchised, because they have had no rights, they will then work to force equality. So the workers, the proletariat, take over, and then they will force equality to happen. One way they will do this is by getting rid of all social classes. To get rid of a class struggle, you must get rid of all social classes. So this is what I find fascinating, is that we know human nature. We know that man is greedy, and man is sinful, and man is fallen. We know that man will always try and grab more power. But according on paper to Marxism, that man, society, will overtake the rich, and that the wealthy will lose power, and that the poor will gain power but then give it up. That doesn't make any sense. We know right now that this will fail. But this is very attractive if you are one of the very poor, if you are one of the proletariat. Marx's ideas are how they will maintain this equality by giving education to all citizens, that the state, meaning the government run by the people, will own all production. So you're not going to worry about whose farm produces more or which business owner is doing a better job. Everyone will benefit equally because the government will create that equality. Another thing is the progressive income tax. Progressive meaning it's done on a scale. So those who have more money pay a larger tax. Eventually, over time, this will normalize and create equality. So we've got these four socialisms. We have we have four socialisms. We have utopian socialism from Robert Owen, the businessman who's creating a good quality of life. We have Christian socialism from Saint-Simon, who says that you will help the poor out of Christian faith and an act of charity. We have Kumbaya socialism. Charles Fourier just says, do what you love and we'll all get along. And we have Marxism. And Marxism will lead to communism. That's it for 5.6.